Hello, what is our panelist password?
Meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's almost there.
Thank you all for joining. We are here for the town hall for the Probation Oversight Commission. We're just waiting a couple more minutes to get everybody online, and then we will get started. Chief Deputy Epps, we can see your box now. It looks like the camera is just turned off or covered.
I don't see it marked out, so I don't know. Let's see if this helps. Oh,
there we go. Great.
Oh, that's what's happening.
Okay, Eduardo, we've lost your video as well. Thank you all for joining us. We'll get started in just a minute with Probation Oversight Commission's Town Hall.
Don's here.
Okay, I think Chair Mundo, you can get started whenever you like.
Great. Good morning. Today is Thursday, March 28, 2024. I want to thank you all for joining our virtual town hall meeting this morning. My name is Eduardo Mundo, and I am the chair of the Probation Oversight Commission. Joining me today are my colleagues, Don Meredith and Frankie Carrillo. Commissioner Kakani will be joining us shortly. The purpose of today's meeting is to hear a report from probation regarding Title 15, Section 1321, staffing non-compliance. POC Director, Executive Director Wendy Julian will briefly share the plan for today and some ground rules for participants, and then we'll proceed with a presentation followed by a panelist discussion with our guest this morning. We will conclude with comments and questions from the public. Wendy, please explain how people can participate in today's virtual town hall meeting.
Thank you, Chair Mundo. Thank you, Commissioners Carrillo and Meredith for being here today, and Deputy Chief Epps. We are having a town hall this morning. It's being broadcast here on WebEx as well as recorded and on our YouTube page and being recorded there. But we will not be engaging with any viewers on YouTube. You can just watch it. Today's town hall is not governed by the Brown Act. We don't have a quorum of probation oversight commissioners here, and we will be not be taking any action today. But we do encourage your participation as always. This is a space for the public to listen and speak with us, and we'll leave plenty of time for comments. If you don't want to comment during the meeting today, you're welcome to send us an email at info@poc.lacounty.gov. Please don't send your public comments in the chat. Only Janae and Ismael, my staff, can see them, so they don't get to the commissioners, but you're welcome to send us an email. After we hear the presentations, we'll open the floor to the commissioners and then to you, the public, for comments and questions. Commissioner Mundo will decide how much time we give people. We don't have the same kind of restrictions as we usually do at our meetings. And if you have a question rather than a public comment, we have the opportunity to give the panelists the opportunity to answer after you make your question instead of waiting until the end. In order to make a public comment here on WebEx, you click the little raise your hand feature. It looks like one raised hand at the bottom of your screen. And also, if you're on the phone, you can dial *3 and that will raise your hand. We'll send a message to unmute you, but you likely have to also unmute yourself before you can give public comment. Buenos días, bienvenidos. Ya se ha iniciado la conferencia y si le gustaría hacer un comentario público después de las presentaciones, puede nomás hacer clic en la manita que está en la parte baja de la pantalla o oprimir *3 en su teléfono. Nosotros podemos proveerle traducción o usted puede proveer su propio traductor. Le daremos el doble del tiempo para traducción. Gracias por estar en asistencia hoy. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Chair Mundo.
Thank you, Wendy. And now I'd like to invite Deputy Chief Kimberly Epps to present. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. As you all know, at least I hope everyone on the line knows, at the last PLC meeting, we were provided a progress report of our efforts to come into compliance with BSCC. At that time, there was concern about there being a lack of discussion around staffing. At that time, we were and remain in the progress of working with our DOJ court settlement monitor, BSCC field rep Lisa Southwell, and our monitor's name is Michael Dempsey, and our subject matter expert in a new staffing software that we will be using to come into compliance with staffing to do the steps for that. So I'll talk more about that today. As you know, one of the findings for non-compliance was staffing, specifically in that finding for non-compliance. Ultimately, the finding for unsuitability, BSCC determined a review of documentation provided by Los Angeles County Probation indicated that minimum staffing numbers were not consistently being met. Staff reassigned to the facility had been removed from the facility, and BSCC determined that without the complement of reassigned staff, they were concerned how compliance could be achieved or maintained. I want to add something to that as a side note. Although staff that were reassigned to the facility during that time were removed, they were simply returned to their regular assignment, and they were no longer assigned to the facility for 5 days a week. However, we continued that number of reassigned staff in our ongoing deployment of staff to the facilities to support staffing needs and to support the needs of the facility. So the staff were not needs of the facility. So the staff were not technically removed. They remain involved with the staff that were already deployed, being assigned there for set numbers of days. And that was an additional amount of staff. They just simply were removed from a 5-day-a-week reassignment. So I will get into just some logistics to give a background. We use a PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act staffing ratio that during waking hours for direct supervision requires 1 staff for every 8 youth for direct supervision. During sleeping hours, there is a requirement that there is 1 direct supervision staff for every 16 youth. In addition to direct supervision numbers, your complement of staff in a facility includes what we call ancillary posts. Those are people that would do things like your unit movement, our crisis intervention team that responds to units. We have, when you come in with certain charges, there's a requirement that DNA is taken. That would be that person that does that. Anytime it's necessary to do a live scan, we have an IDC unit intakes for any new entries into the facility. So there are a number of people that run your visiting. There are other duties and functions that help the overall facility operate. So aside from your direct supervision numbers, the requirement in Title 15 is very specific in stating in part that you must have a sufficient number of administrative, clerical, recreational, medical, dental, mental health, building maintenance, transportation, control room, facility, security, and other staff, other support staff for the efficient management of the facility. So I want to talk first about some of our short-term strategies that we've been doing to come into compliance. We've obtained the technical assistance that I opened up with from Michael Dempsey, our court-appointed DOJ settlement monitor, Lisa Southwell, our BSCC field representative, Michael Smiler, who is a subject matter expert in the use of the scheduling management system, which is a system used at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The goal of us receiving assistance for coming into compliance and staffing is with the intent to improve staffing practices, how we schedule, through reviewing materials, our staffing schedules, what do those look like over time? Currently, to define minimal and optimal, how many staff on a baseline at minimum does it take to effectively operate the facility? Identifying what we would look at if you say like a Cadillac model, an optimal number of staff to have on staff to allow us to do over and above anything extra. And identifying a consistent baseline. This is what we absolutely need at all times to operate when we meet a minimum staffing number. Those are baselines for Barry J and for LP. We also considered what has been the trend in facility daily populations and identified the ancillary post. So those are the other supplemental things that support the running of the facility, and defined ancillary roles and responsibilities. In that process, after saying our technical assistant, another short-term strategy, we did a staffing assessment, looked at an analysis process. We took a look at what are our imminent staffing needs, projected staffing, played with the scenarios. What if we go from, say, 250 youth to 300? What is the changing and the adjustment in that? Formulating strategies to continue to support non-direct supervision operations, developing scenario staffing plans around the facility, working with BSCC, and developing things that others could follow easily to see these are the staffing numbers. Developing the scenarios I just discussed, those different staffing levels, and looking at how many full-time staff we need to have at any given time, and identifying how more effectively we can use the number of staff who may be on light duty assignments when and if possible. In our baseline number, working with DOJ to finalize that optimal staffing level, actually taking a look at each and every ancillary post. How many people are assigned to that post? Is there a need for that many people to be assigned to those types of posts? One post I will give you an example of, we had 30 people, although light duty, assigned to assist with recreation monitoring when youth are out on the field. Does it take that many people to do that, or can we move some of our ancillary posts into a more administrative format? For example, what ancillary posts, looking at the numbers, what can be something that does not require a sworn staff? For example, can an analyst, a program analyst, a fiscal person, a inspector, different levels of non-sworn staff in our department, can they assume some of those responsibilities? As I stated, we worked through that quite a bit. We really drilled down on those ancillary posts, and Ms. Roman and Ms. Novak provided finalized ancillary post information, included defining specific numbers and more specific but very concise details on what those ancillary posts do. In doing that, I waited as long as I could yesterday to turn something in writing. We were still waiting our final staffing plan from our DOJ monitor. The last adjustment to that, we were actually in a technical assistance meeting yesterday with Ms. Southwell, who went through our proposed format and making some changes to our staffing plan format for the facility. For example, moving some things around in the ancillary posts, putting them at the bottom of a form, defining which things in that would be operations. Where could she find the numbers? If, for example, if you're saying, hey, I need 117 staff to run the facility on any given time, identifying a way to break out direct supervision and identifying how you are using or staffing up your ancillaries. Are they regularly scheduled to ensure that it's very clear that they're not being pulled away from direct supervision? In addition to doing that, we have played a lot with what is called a replacement factor, relief factor. So we put several different ratios. I can tell you one that Mr. Dempsey came back with was 2 to 11, basically needing 2 staff for any time on duty for anywhere you'd have to relieve a post, whether it's direct supervision post or an ancillary post that would allow you to still effectively operate. That might happen if a kid has to go for a medical run, and you have to now take 2 staff to escort to the hospital. Or if a staff is injured, having adequate staff on hand at any given time to replace any of those little incidental things that happen. Staff that go on a medical run, staff that might have to go home sick, staff that may be out at the hospital because they themselves are injured, and adjusting for those. The other thing that we have done in looking at those different scenarios, today I actually left a meeting where we are finalizing our final facility operational number, finalizing the changes that we discussed with Ms. Southwell on a final staffing plan to get that completed, anticipating we'll get everything to Ms. Southwell and Mr. Dempsey next week. We have also implemented a new scheduling process using the scheduling management system to improve how shifts are assigned based upon an improved shift assignment process, better assessing staff availability, facility needs to meet baseline minimums, or to decrease staffing areas, possibly not scheduling enough staff or over-scheduling staff that then you're basically sending them in different places in the facility or finding a place for them to go. We have bolstered our field deployment plan. The department has deployed field officers, directors, and bureau chiefs to Barry J and LP. Staff reassigned from the field have prior experience as detention services officers, or they have completed a required 59 hours of STC-approved probation officer to detention services officer training. So if you've already been a probation officer, you have to just do 59 hours to be able to work in the facility. That deployment includes 6 bureau chiefs being deployed to Los Padrinos to provide technical assistance, coaching, guidance, and mentoring to unit supervisors and facility directors. Assigned what we're calling a campus at LP. Hey, is paperwork being done? One of the things that we were non-compliant, in was searches, safety checks, and room confinement, making sure that when room confinement is necessary for short intermittent terms, say following a facility disruption, a one-on-one fight, or anything that impedes normal operations, that it's being properly documented. In our non-compliance, there was a problem around room confinement with documentation being done in a timely manner and having what was completed in it. So offering very specific technical assistance on those things. We have a full binder of their report outs on that. I'd be more than happy to put one together for the POC. Additionally, 3 directors have been deployed to Barry J, and 25 directors have been deployed to LP. They are working in the buildings and different places within the facility. 53 field officers have been deployed to Barry J, and 149 field officers have been deployed to LP. Any questions on the short-term strategies that I've discussed thus far? Okay.
I think we'll listen to your whole presentation and then we'll have questions.
Okay. Long-term strategies. In October, Los Angeles County entered into a contract with CPS HR Consulting to provide consulting services for digital talent marketing, assisting with recruitment and retention strategies. That contract will be in place until April 2025 with an option for renewal. Achievements to date for that progress. On 12/26/23, Facebook, Instagram, and landing page campaign ads were launched. And then it provides in the report the website for that. On January 17th, 2024, and January 18th, 2024, Human Resources and CPS, our recruitment contractor, CPS, toured Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall and Barry Nydorf, took approximately 1,000 photos and selected photos for an ad campaign to use in ads for recruitment. In January of 2024, Google Ads campaign was launched. For marketing research, CPS conducted 10 one-on-one interviews with DSOs and GSNs, those are our night custody staff and our detention services officers, analyzed responses documented in 52 exit interviews and 30 responses from DSOs and GSN online surveys. This data will serve to developing marketing strategies and campaigns. On February 5th, 2024, CPS generated the Los Angeles County Probation one-to-one key takeaways report, which incorporates the collected data and focuses on the factors that attract applicants and motivate employees to stay. In the first weeks of February, CPS expanded the partnership with Indeed to boost the current post and relaunch the Indeed campaign, which was initially started in September 2023. DHR and probation focused on the DSO and GSN positions, creation of digital ads and using data from staff interviews and surveys to create marketing taglines and highlight organizational values. Digital ads are currently running on Facebook, Instagram, and Google, as I previously stated, as well as incorporating the landing page with detailed department and position information. This page is where interested parties who click apply now from the ad are directed for additional information and to apply. We're utilizing CPS contracts with Indeed in the job search engine to post our positions and flyers and direct interest parties to our online application. Weekly overall metrics reporting showing data for marketing campaign and landing page activities. All information from the on-site recruitment sign-in sheets provided by DHR, Human Resources, and Probation, and information entered on the landing page were used for the continuous email drip campaign, where all recipients receive multiple emails with information to apply and details about the job and a call to action. CPS included geofencing for traditional on-site recruitment events. They spread DSO and GSN ads across geographical areas where probation holds recruitment events and inform the public that probation will be recruiting at those events. CPS is adjusting the campaign based on the statistics and our user engagement and tracking traffic from all social media platforms and traditional on-site recruitment events. This includes comparing stats or data to information from the county's job application site, NeoGov, for all accepted applications. CPS, Probation, and Human Resources meet weekly to monitor progress. Probation and Human Resource communicate actively with CPS to gather information and meet the initial goal of increasing the job application rate and quality candidate pool for critical detention services officers and group supervisor nights positions. I will say in addition to that, we're rounding out a campaign that specifically targets veterans and those, and in addition to veterans, individuals who are exiting active duty service to recruit them as an immediate after job upon discharge from their military service. So that is underway. We are also improving our training to improve retention and the skills of our staff to improve working situations at the hall. So that concludes my report. I do want to note that on page 2 of the report, under staffing assessment and analysis, I see that it's partially bold. I think you were sent the first draft of this report, so my apologies for that.
Thank you for that presentation, Chief Deputy Epps. Before I open up the floor to my fellow commissioners, I'm inviting Stacy Ford, President of 685, to comment and present the union's position on staffing. Mr. Ford, if you can unmute yourself by pressing *3 and let us know that you're here.
Thanks, Chair Mundo. There we go. Janae, if you can unmute, calling user number 18.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you. We can hear you. Please proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the report that the department just gave. First of all, I think the report was a good report, and I haven't seen that report, but I will say it sounds good. But the report that I'm getting and the executive board that we're getting from our membership is that we're pulling people out of the field offices to provide services in the juvenile halls, and there are no staff or a minimum staff that are working in the field offices, which is causing a conflict because the field staff are saying that they can no longer provide services to their clients because they're not in the office. Their report is saying that they are, since they've been pulled out of the field offices, the services that they need to provide to their clients are not being rendered. Therefore, those members or those clients are now in the community, and the community is unsafe because these people are not getting the services that they so desperately need. In reference to the staffing in the juvenile halls, until the department go in and fix the foundation in the juvenile halls, you can hire 1,000 people and they're not going to stay until we create a safe environment in our juvenile halls. And a safe environment means these young people and young adults that we serve have got to be held accountable for their actions. Right now, these young people are walking around, they're doing what they want to do, saying what they want to say, they're being disrespectful, they're assaulting officers, and there are very minimum consequences. And until we address that factor, none of this is going to matter. We have to address the safety and security needs of our officers as well as our young people. Not only that, but our staff are being disciplined. When there's an incident in the institutions, but the problem is you can't enforce policy when you don't have enough staff. I represented an officer yesterday that was being disciplined because there was a fight and there wasn't enough staff to intervene, and the young person got hurt. So we have to look at those elements along with all this, short and long time plan. I haven't heard anything about securing the facility. We have to make it safe, and I just don't see that being done. I don't see consequences being done. I don't see hope centers being used, none of that. And so on behalf of our members, I just think we need to address that. I've made several attempts to ask the chief to meet with us. I thank Ms. Epps for coming to the office, and she did meet with us, but I reached out to the chief, and he has failed to meet with us to discuss what the plans are. This is the first time I'm hearing all this outlined today. I haven't heard that before. I just heard it just now. I'm at an area office this morning, and there's only about 2 or 3 people working here, and their complaint is all their people are in the halls, and they have to turn away clients because there's nobody to render services to them. We are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and this is unacceptable. We have to do better. And in reference to the staffing crisis in general, this is something that this is not new. This has been going on for a while. And if the LA County Board of Supervisors would have hired, we wouldn't be in this predicament that we're in. And when you talk about recruitment, we have the POC, you folks there, that are constantly saying negative summaries about probation. You very seldom say anything nice about us. It's all negative. And when you put that kind of summary out into the public, do you really think people are going to want to work for this department? They're not going to come because of the information that you all put out there about us being rapists and molesters and all those kind of things. And then we have the community-based organization who comes in and they speak terrible about probation. So it's going to be hard to retain people that we do get when we don't get the support that we feel we should be getting. This union wants to support the department in their efforts, but we're asking the department as well as the POC and the Board of Supervisors to hear us, listen to what we have to say. When we started deploying and reassigning people into the halls, we didn't give account to their age. We didn't give any account to their medical conditions. We didn't give any account to none of that. We just said, you're going to the halls, and that's final. I asked Chief if he would consider listening to some of our people and work with us with flexible work schedules so that we can come into the halls and perform job duties. But that didn't happen. So
Mr.
I'm
Ford,
just saying, yeah.
thank you. If you can just wrap up so we can have a chance for public comment and commissioner comments.
Yeah, I will. I will
Thank
send
you.
I will send a full written report to you all on what I'm saying, because there's a lot to this report that I'm not going to be allowed to say. But I'll send that report over to you guys this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
And thank you.
You presented some issues that should be addressed, and commissioners, by raising your hand, please let me know that you would like to comment. Take 5 or less or more minutes, as much as you need.
Commissioner Mundo, as you're doing that, I just wanted to let folks in the audience know that the link to the report that Chief Deputy Epps just gave is in the chat. It's also, we're happy to email it to you if you're on the phone, because I know you can't send it. So if you send an email to us, we'll send you a copy of it.
Thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Carrillo?
Thank you, Chair. After listening to Mr. Ford, Ms. Epps, I just have a question about morale. We're talking a lot about all the cogs moving or getting back on track, but what is the department doing for staff morale at this point to get them excited about coming to work? For those who are coming to work, can you tell me about that?
My apologies, I was having a problem unmuting. So if I heard your question correctly, Commissioner Carrillo, you asked what we're doing for staff morale to get people to come to work.
For those who are coming to work, what are you doing? Not to attract them to come back to work, but for those who are showing up to work, what is happening with that?
I have to be honest with you in saying that BSCC coming into compliance and working on our DOJ monitoring, a lot of our efforts have been towards the deployment and doing that. We do recognize we have several people, hundreds, thousands, as a matter of fact, that show up regularly for work. And we have to do better in that area. We 100% know that. And dealing with some of the other staffing gaps that we've had to address, that is often something that doesn't get done to the level in which we can do it. We do have a meeting ironically set up for next week to discuss that, because we do realize it. There were incentives offered, and I believe the sunset on those incentives was right before December of 2023 for staff that had had so many hours in continuous supervision of youth, and it was a financial incentive. And those payouts, I believe, are still being worked through for some of the staff. And there were some things that happened before I got here I'm not as familiar with, but I can certainly check into that information to give a more well-rounded report of what has previously been done. And I can report out on the agreements that we come away with from our meeting next week. I'm sorry, I don't have more for you in that area, or on that topic rather.
Okay, Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you. Do you have a breakdown of where the 202 field officers and I think the 38 directors like came from? Like what units, what populations they were serving, things of that nature?
I can get you that report. I certainly can get that based on who's deployed, because there'll be this first round and 2 rounds. So there's that comprehensive number, and the number I read is what's deployed right now. But I can certainly get that for you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because just even in talking to public defenders, it's my understanding, for example, right, you have Star Court, which is dedicated to, I think, young women and gender expansive youth who are victims of sexual exploitation and trafficking. And there's a very specific unit of POs or probation officers that work with them who are part of the child trafficking unit, who I think have like very important, unique, almost like life-saving relationships with the young folks that they work with. And so it's my understanding, again, like a large, actually like a majority, if not like all but 2, were essentially reassigned, deployed to the halls, which leaves these young women in very dangerous positions because oftentimes when they go AWOL, when they find themselves in unsafe positions and feel ready and safe to leave those spaces, the only adult that they have to call are these POs. So just kind of wondering, like having a breakdown of which units have been pulled from, I think would be super helpful. And the other thing that we're hearing is that a lot of young folks who are supposed to be, calling in to report, who are, being kind of like surveilled and monitored in the community, when they call in, there's no one to answer. All of which is problematic. And now there's also delays in pre-plea reports, which I think are taking up to 6 weeks for probation officers to turn around. And what that means is that young folks are then kind of in limbo and their cases are extending for a significant amount of time. And I think research shows that, the longer that a young person is cycling through a case, the longer that a young person is kind of dealing with probation kind of in their lives, the more likely it is that these processes have like harmful consequences, especially if there aren't really staff who can meaningfully support them because they are being deployed. So I understand that this is like an interim fix and that it's like, and it kind of feels like we're just like slapping things together to be in compliance, but I don't know that, it doesn't sound like there's really a plan to ensure that, the young folks and the adults, presumably, I'm not sure if folks from the adult field services were also pulled, who are under your jurisdiction and supervision and surveillance are, I think they are suffering as well. So I just wanted to name that there's a real concern about kind of like piecing together this plan, and sure, we're coming into compliance with facilities, but I guess the concern is that then there are a bunch of folks who are being harmed who are not yet in the facilities, who might now end up in facilities, which I think is the antithesis of what we're going for here. Do you have any like information? I think, similar to Commissioner Carrillo's comments, like, has there been kind of any sort of assessment into the impact that the deployment is having on, I guess you call them clients?
We met with our deputy directors to get their plans for field coverage. I can tell you that they are going to be meeting again to look at shifting some staff around, but as I stated, in response to your opening question, we can certainly give you a report of where people were pulled from. In addition to that, anything about covering the field offices plan provided from our deputy directors, those were given to us in writing. So I can get you those 2 things.
Okay, that means caseloads and stuff as well. So like what caseloads were before and what they will be going forward, or at least for the next 60 days?
As I said, I can give you the information of where we pull from, whatever you're asking for. We will get that together. As I said, I can show you the field plans that were provided to us because we did ask, in addition to where we pulled people from for deployment. So anything that you're concerned in the POC follow-up, if you get it to us, we will certainly follow up with that information.
Okay. And then when folks are being deployed to the halls in Barry J, I know that they have to be trained, obviously, before they can even, or whatever, like there is that like minimal training or the minimum training that they have to do. Has there been any follow-up with those folks who are now inside in terms of like what they need, if they feel like they have what they need, whether that training was sufficient? Because, you know, I don't know, I imagine that folks who are in the halls, young folks, there's a lot of like anxiety around like how long am I going to be here, what's going to happen with my case, is there, you know, there's a lot of, I think it's very different from once you've been like sentenced or once your disposition is complete. And so it requires, I think, you know, I don't know, probably a special level of understanding of the like anxiety and uncertainty and trauma that these young folks are being confronted with. So yeah, just wondering if there's been any follow-up with the staff who have now been deployed and like how that transition has been.
Prior to this deployment of staff, you know, there was already the ongoing deployment that's been going on in some form in Los Angeles County for 4 years. In addition to this specific time frame, prior to the deployment, even prior to the determination of unsuitability, there were concerns in my observations of going through the unit, just talking with our deputy directors, talking with our bureau chiefs on some things that needed to be improved in our facilities. Direct supervision, structuring, programming, just different things. So we deployed bureau chiefs to the facility. They remain deployed as part of this deployment as well. As I said in the report, they have been on hand providing coaching, support, training for the supervisors, for the seniors, helping out on the unit. Hey, these are some things that you can do that you can get better. Again, as I said, I have no problem providing to the POC a copy of the
to kind of, if you can potentially reach out to your fellow union members to even get that feedback. Like, I don't know if it's creating a survey, if it's just some sort of like tracked, consistent feedback, not just based on like, oh, I saw this, like maybe here's like an isolated area of support that you might benefit from. And then kind of lastly, you know, I know that there are a number of special units, obviously, whether it's, you know, the boys care, or is that what it's called? Right? Like with the boys care, or is that what it's called? Right? Like where you have young folks who maybe have some developmental disabilities and folks like that. Are there special trainings for the staff who are being deployed to some of these special units, even like the compound units at LP, right? Where you have like older young folks who obviously have either been there for a longer time, will be there for a longer time. Are there additional and special or specific trainings for folks who are being deployed to those units?
There's the training that's being provided that covers some of those areas for you to be deployed in the facility. But remember, as a baseline, all probation officers, detention services officers, supervisors, directors are required to do a minimum of 40 hours of state training, STC training every year. So because of the requirements for our state training, a lot of the things in mental health, report writing, motivational interviewing, different communication strategies, dealing with kids that have complex care needs, dealing with clients, period, in crisis. Those are ongoing training things that are regularly provided to officers.
No, I get that, but I imagine that like, right, I mean, getting those trainings and knowing generally that you don't work with that population is very different than all of a sudden you've been deployed to this unit where you are now working kind of intensively with this population. So that's great that there's like that general training, but I think it's very different when then suddenly you're thrown into a space where you're actually dealing with these young folks who have like a special set of needs. But it sounds like maybe there isn't like like any extra or dedicated kind of training for young folks who are being, or not young folks, for the POs who are being
Well,
deployed.
I'm sorry that it sounds like that, and that's your takeaway from it. Probation officers are very flexible individuals. Training is ongoing. You are required to train 40 hours every year, and most train over and above that. And anytime there's changes in the law, because of the clients that we deal with for special populations needs, people are trained. So I'd have to know more specifically what you're looking for, because it often covers things that inform how we deal with the populations that we work with and the
May-
needs of those populations.
Maybe we
So
can,
All right.
maybe
I don't
we
know
can put
what
that
else
as
you're
an
asking.
agenda.
Yeah,
Maybe we
I
can
can
put
pass it. I'll
Yeah.
pass it to Commissioner Meredith. I just really quickly, I hear what you're saying, but like, I went to law school for 3 years, in theory, to be trained to be a lawyer. Nothing that I learned in law school was relevant to me being a lawyer. It was only after I was in those spaces, working with clients, receiving additional training specific to kind of the work that I was doing, that I became better and more prepared to be a public defender, a lawyer, whatever it is. So thank you for, I don't know, I think you said, I'm sorry that you feel that way, or that was your
No, I said,
takeaway.
I'm
But like,
sorry that that is your takeaway.
right, I'm sorry that is your takeaway, but it's not that this is just my takeaway. It's just that there's like it feels silly to not acknowledge that, at least what we're hearing from folks is that maybe they're not feeling totally prepared, and then to
And
just
we'll
rely on
certainly
these
look
40
into
hours
that.
of
That is
training.
something to look into. But I'm sorry if I'm not giving you the answers that you feel I should give you.
Thank you.
I'll pass it to Commissioner Meredith.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Chief Epps, for the report. I appreciate that. And I appreciate Stacey Ford's input too. I just want to point out that, yes, we have a situation where we have to go to essential staffing, that being the custody facilities. That is essential. And unfortunately, at times, we're probably robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say. My only concern is I know we're doing some of the rotations with the co-located, and I would ask that the department reach out to those agencies and work with the chief so they know that at some point in time, those co-located will come back, because those are a critical element to their operations. But I do appreciate the report, as well as Stacey Ford's input, and I agree that we need to work together in partnership to build up the morale and to work on that recruitment that we have in progress. That's all I have.
Given the time, I'm going to yield my time to public comment. I appreciate that everyone joined us early this morning. And so Wendy, can you facilitate public comment now, please?
Thank you, Chair Mundo, and to the commissioners and Deputy Chief Epps. So we've got 40 minutes for public comment. And if you'd like to make public comment, you need to be on WebEx. We're not taking any public comment from YouTube. So you can go back to the meeting invitation and the agenda that's on our website if you need to get on the WebEx site. Or you can send us a written public comment, which we'll get out to the commissioners at info@poc.lacounty.gov. If you'd like to get in the queue, some folks have already been doing this. Please press the little raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the phone, please dial *3 and that will put you in the queue. We'll call you by your phone number. So you need to be paying attention when we call your phone number. Chair Mundo, I will leave it up to you. We can either I can do a timer, or we can just let folks talk and you can cut them off if they go too long, in your opinion. Since we're not doing a regular public comment here.
I'm going to let public comment run for 2 minutes. And I hope that everybody will respect everybody's time. If you go a little over, we're not going to cut you off, but be mindful that there are individuals that do want to speak, and that way we can get as many public comments in as possible.
Okay, sounds good. So we only have a couple of hands raised. If you'd like to make public comment, please raise your hand. We'll start with Bernadette Renee Martinez. And we're going to unmute you, but you may have to also unmute yourself. Bernadette, you can begin.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So it's not the fact that you still aren't being accountable for your shortcomings. Isn't there some sort of attachment that you currently have to the current officers make more sense to drain the swamp and start over. Bottom line is the current deputies dropped the ball, failed our youth, my youth, and I would just think that it saves a lot of time, headache, funding, monies to just start over again. Putting band-aids all over the place doesn't seem like it would fix the problem. And to a department that would complain that it's everybody else's fault and not be accountable, I don't know very much information on Don Meredith, but I would think you're the problem. If you represent the union and the entire program, why don't you take accountability? These are children. Why is it everybody else? Why is it the Board of Supervisors' fault? Haven't they given enough money funding the program to think that it could at least meet compliance? Is there any other states that you could possibly mirror that do have a successful compliance report and success with the children's futures? I can't understand for the life of me how you would put it back on the children. Another thing too is, what is the difference between background checks between officers and the background? Because Ms. Ebbs, that is an awesome idea. I have a campaign as well, focusing on the veterans and military. But I would just I'm curious to know what those background checks are and how often do you run them, especially with mentors and counselors that attend with the youth, my youth, that are gang members, when my son has issues with that already. It's really odd to me. And also, how many civil violation rights complaints do you have? Human, juvenile, or parental? That would be another key issue that I would be really curious to know, as far as with the current officers and how their performance is. Because no matter who explains or tells the truth on how this investigation began and what the issues are, the bottom line is it's the truth, no matter who brings it out. Thank God somebody did bring it out. But yeah, that is basically everything that I've had to discuss. And thank you so much for letting me speak.
Bernadette, before you mute yourself, can you unmute Bernadette again, please, Janae or Ismail? Bernadette,
Okay, yes.
on my end, it cut off just momentarily. Your voice cut off a little bit when you asked the specific question about the background checks. Would you mind repeating that just so that the commissioners and Deputy Chief Epps can hear the question?
Sure. What would be the difference between a military background check and the current officer's background checks? Because yes, okay.
Is that a question that you can answer, Deputy Chief Epps?
Okay,
I'm not familiar with what is done for background checks when you enter military service. I can tell you we follow all of the state guidelines for background. I can easily get a copy of that for the POC to share next time, like what we're required to do. I believe it's pretty much spelled out in the code. But so I can't say, hey, this is the comparison between the two, but we do target, as I said, we target many people, but that just happens to be a population that's coming out of the military and one we're interested in as well. So I'm sorry, I don't know the military background process.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Arena, Rochelle. Adrena, you can begin.
My comments for, I believe it was a union who called in. He gave a lot of false statements, and you really need to stop blaming kids for your own failures. As adults, we take accountability, not make excuses or blame kids. And we do not speak lies about probation. We come on here and speak the truth about their heinous acts against kids. I'm more than a community member and parent. I'm the president for LACO inside the juvenile halls. He stated to start holding kids accountable. You can't hold kids accountable when your department is in non-compliance and falling apart. That actually falls on you. According to your job description, when hiring candidates, you list yourself as a treatment center and rehabilitation center. Then you come on public comment making statements like hold the kids accountable and punish them for your department's non-compliance. That doesn't sound like a treatment and rehabilitation center. When is the treatment going to start? Or are you lying to a community about the services you render? It's time to hold the adults accountable for failing at their job. It's a complete biased way of thinking. I'm glad people like you speak up for probation. It gives a community an idea of what type of people we are dealing with, and it actually makes your department look worse. Now, when you're talking about staff for hire, what type of staff are you hired looking towards exactly? Now, it's concerning when you guys say you're searching for veterans who are actively on military. Are they even stable enough, just given their position, to come over here and work with kids? Now, there was a probation officer, my son, he is very mature for such a young age. She was very rude and disrespect him, and my son was like, "Oh, I'm gonna just file a grievance with you. I'm not gonna feed into it." And she told him, if you file a grievance, I'm gonna go file one on your court case to affect you. So it's like the kids can't even tell on the officers when they're doing something wrong, because they're gonna come around and punish them to keep them in jail longer. That needs to stop, and I need to start dropping names. I'm not gonna drop this particular officer's name today, but if they keep messing with the kids, I'm gonna start dropping everybody's names to make sure they get held accountable. Thank you.
You're
Or
on mute.
Margot, do you want to?
Oh, I didn't hear anything you said, but I know Miss Epps wants to respond.
Great.
Well,
Flavio, if you can just hang on for a second, we'll go back to Deputy Chief Epps and then come back to public comment.
There is a problem that's being reported, and there's an allegation that any kid in our care is not being treated properly, up to and including stating that there will be false reports, is what I believe you just said or indicated. Please, I do ask that you fill out a citizen's complaint form so that we can address anything that may or may not be wrong, so that that gets the appropriate attention. That is not something we condone. That is not something that I am aware of until you just said it in this call, but we certainly want the opportunity for someone to look into it so that it can be addressed.
Thank you. And that citizens complaint form is available on probation's website through the ombudsman's office. I'll get it in the chat in just a moment. Now we'll go back to Flavio Andrade. You may begin. Flavio, you may need to unmute yourself. You appear unmuted on our end, but I can't hear you. If you're, it looks like you're on WebEx. You may need to just click the unmute button. We're going to go to the next speaker and then we'll come back to you, Flavio. Next speaker is Thomas. Thomas, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
All right, good. Well, first of all, I just want to clarify that we are a rehabilitation program. Probation does rehabilitate. Part of rehabilitating someone is them accepting responsibility for their action. You can't rehabilitate someone and they not accept responsibility for their action. Okay, that's the first and foremost. Second, I wanted to say, like, as far as morale, I've said this many of times and it kind of got overlooked. We need to start offering promotions. Everybody feels better when they get when promotions are handed out. DSOs have been on the line for years. The ones that show up all the time, the ones that show to work all the time, and they have their degree should be promoted to ones. The DPO 3 field positions should be opened up. DPO 2s who are good at working in the halls and enjoy working in the halls, some of them do, should have the opportunity to be promoted to a DPO 3. DPO 1 should have the opportunity to be promoted to DPO 2s and be able to go and work these halls and work with SYTF kids with a clear heart, not forced. I think the problem we're having with officers right now is that they're feeling forced. They have no choice. And I know we're in a dire situation right now, but there's ways that we can help that out where people won't feel forced. They know what they're getting into and they feel good about what they're doing. That's what we're saying. We just got to make sure that we hold these kids accountable as well. We got to keep the facilities safe. It's not blaming kids. And we blame the board of supervisors because they're the ones that stopped hiring. I don't know where the money is going, but they're the ones that stopped hiring, so we do blame them. But they need to be held accountable. And it has to be a safer environment for the kids and the officers. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. We'll go back to Flavio Andrade now. Flavio, you're unmuted. Can we hear you? Janae or Ismail, do you have any idea what the audio issue is?
He appears unmuted.
Okay. Sorry, we're having trouble with that. Let's go to Lena Mallet. We'll come back to you, Flavio. Lena, you can begin. Lena shows up muted on my end now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to highlight my concern that's wrapped up in the marketing campaign, which to me feels a little useless if the struggle for retention is as severe as it is. And I did also appreciate the mention, I don't know which commissioner brought this up, but of issuing some kind of survey to analyze staff thoughts and opinions and feelings around these recent deployment shifts, especially in the last 60 days. There was an exit interview survey that was released a couple months ago, and I think the findings there were really useful in identifying the reasons for staff leaving and acknowledging that like 25% either disagreed or strongly disagreed that they would consider future employment with the department. Almost 30% disagreed or strongly disagreed that the working conditions were suitable. A similar percentage also shared that they were never encouraged to make suggestions for improvement within the department. So I think, retention and staff morale are obviously at a low, and it would be helpful, I think, to capture that. And and then another concern is with the military, the specific military targeted recruitment. This feels like a really clear deepening militarization of this department. And we talk a lot about how relationships are really the foundation of care and change and nurturing these young people. And it's been proven over and over again that law enforcement is not the one that should be holding that. So yeah, curious around this like targeted recruitment and if there are other sources that you are looking into that have proven to care for young people in the ways that they need.
Thank you. And the exit survey that Lena is referring to is available on our website, and we'll try to put a link to it in the chat. I would agree that it's very illustrative. Tyreek, welcome back. We're going to unmute you. Tyreek Ship. You can begin. Tyreek, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
All right, perfect. What I would just like to talk about is like, because I heard a lot around training and a lot of commissioners mentioned training, and I feel like that's a big thing because there's a lot of stuff that this staff needs to learn, like how to stay in the compliance, about safety checks, about a number of things, and then also about everything that we doing to fight the drug battle and stuff like that. But what I'm not hearing is like, how are they getting this training? Because this is a lot of information in a little bit of time. And then are they being deployed right into it, or is it like a probationary period where they're waiting out? Are we just trying to fall into compliance, or are we really working to get our probation department together? And that's really what my questions is around, is like, are we just deploying them even though they may not have the proper training and then training them over time? Or is it something like where we try to give them time to train and learn all these compliance and learn all of these safety checks? Because I feel like that can be a danger to the youth as well if we just deploying them to fall into compliance, right? And so that's what, and then I also would just, I know Frank and Korea brought it up as well about around like staff morale and stuff like that, right? Because staff will continue not to show up if we don't do something about the staff morale. So I would just love to highlight that we just need to do something around staff morale immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyreek. Go ahead, Ms. Epps.
Thank you, Mr. Ship, on the reinforcement for the staff morale. That's not lost on us. Just to address a little bit more about the training, thank you for specifically bringing up the safety checks. So there are pocket trainings that are taking place in the facility around what we're doing for the safety checks, training to any changes that we've made in the policies for safety checks, for room confinement, for searches, things targeting those specific areas that we are out of compliance. Again, that is what the bureau chiefs are on site working with the directors and the supervisors to do. What does that paperwork look like? What are you supposed to be doing? Also addressing things in the unit. We can provide a more specific presentation on that if people want to know, hey, what all did this unfold to look like in the facilities? I'd certainly welcome it. We are going into also our new training year, which will start July 1st with a new training plan. This is heavily revised from what we've done in previous years. So we'll be turning that into the BSCC training branch. There's not only the branch for the field inspections for facilities, but also for training. There's some very specific things that are required. We also have elective courses that will be taken and working on doing more robust training for our staff. And we'd love to detail what that's doing. And not only, I'd like to end here, are we recruiting for military personnel? We also recruit on college campuses. We have a position that is a detention services officer, detention probation officer, social worker position. We're expanding the numbers in that position and recruiting for that position as well. We want well-rounded staff that come from very different perspectives in life and have experiences that can lend to mentoring our young people and working with them. So we recruit in a number of places, a number of individuals, because we value what everybody can bring to the table. So thank you again for bringing that up.
Thank you, Ms. Epps. We only have one more hand raised, which is Flavio Andrade, which I will happily go to again, and hopefully we can make it work this time. If anyone else would like to give comment, please use the raise your hand function or dial *3 if you're on the phone. Again, if you are on YouTube, we cannot communicate with you that way, but you can send an email to us at info@poc.lacounty.gov. We did receive a couple of written emails that have been shared with commissioners. Flavio, is that, I think that was Chair Mundo that I heard.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Nope, I don't think we're able to make the audio connection. I'm sorry.
So are we done with?
Oh, okay. I think maybe he's called in. Thank you, Janae and Ismail, for working that out. If you dial *6 on your phone, it's calling user number 10. We should be able to hear you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. So I am currently a field probation officer who was sent home due to use my personal time due to my current disabilities. One of those disabilities is my high-risk pregnancy and not being able to go through the physical requirements that the department demands. I feel like I am being punished for being pregnant. My question is, what is the department doing to assist these individuals who are currently have disabilities or have physical requirements that prevent them from going into juvenile hall?
Ms. Epps, is that a question you're able to answer?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Mundo. No, that is a human resources matter, and I am not at liberty to comment on individual cases that I'm not specifically aware of, or on the wholesale process to address any physical limitations or anything that falls under medical. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, though.
How about the general question? What I'm hearing is that staff that do have disabilities are not being allowed to go to work and having to stay home using their time. What is the underlying thought behind that and the strategy on that?
Again, Commissioner, that is a human resources question. The impact is significant. I am not at liberty to answer it due to the ongoing human resources involvement, and it's a much more complex issue.
Well, I guess solving it may be a human resource issue, but the decision, was that made by probation administration or human resources? Just the decision itself.
As I said, I can't answer one without answering the other. We have to consult on any matters that involve personnel, particularly when there's a significant impact. It goes into a much broader issue that's being addressed. Again, we're impacted in a number of ways. And I would like to talk with our counsel and HR before I answer anything on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I apologize. Don't have more.
Okay, we'll go back to public comment. We're going to make a final valiant attempt here with Flavio Andrade. You are unmuted. Oh, great. Thank you for your resilience and hanging on. We're looking forward to your comment.
Thank you, and thank everybody for allowing me to speak. So I'm pretty, I have a lot to say. This is something I just started. My name is Flavio Andrade. I'm president of Brown and Black Foundation, 501c3, which is out here in Pasadena, California. I just kind of ran into you guys. Someone that offered me the information to come in and said, hey, you should talk about this, So I want to give you my side. I was 12 years old when I first went to jail, to juvie. They convinced my mother to let me, to give them the opportunity to help me out. Not only did I experience the worst time in my life there, but I was 12 years old, and to have grown as men, and I apologize for the way I'm speaking, but this is something I have a lot of passion in, and I'm not just going to be like, quiet about certain things. But what I do want to say is, the opportunity is the fact that I was put in a box at 12 years old for 30 days. I got beat up by the staff when things happen. Yes, I would agree that, at times was I the most respectful? No, but they aren't either. So Ms. Epps, for you to sit here and the other guy that called in, that's, you guys got to hear our side and just my side. And no, that's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in those detention centers. Luckily for me, I was able to put in my mind a better thought of, frame of thought to be better off in life. But that experience right there destroyed me. You know what I'm saying? I was, as soon as I got out of jail at 12 years old, I turned 13 in there, I was shot at 13 years old. Because I just indulged more in violence because I was so upset because of how I was treated, how I was talked to. At that point, I'm 46 years old now, but I was 12 years old dealing with grown-ass men talking to me a certain way because they have the authority to speak to me like that. So when you guys talk about hiring people in the military, that's sickening to me. Do you guys even know who Dave Grossman is? That's who the police department hires to train their officers. So now Ms. Epps wants to have people from the military, that like the other lady that called in and said, how do we know they're even competent enough because of their PTSD, all kinds of things that they go through. Like, that's just crazy to be sitting here having this conversation. So I just want to let anybody out there know that I hope you guys really understand that this is crazy, and I hope you guys understand that us, the people that have these issues, not them, I do crisis intervention now. Statewide, across the country, actually. I'm level 1 autistic, spectrum disorder trained, de-escalation, everything those probation officers, quote unquote, state that they do. You need people like us in there. I have no felonies, I have nothing, but I don't want to be a probation officer. I don't want
Sir,
to be a police officer. Go ahead.
sir,
Sorry about
if
that.
you can just tie it up, thank you.
Okay. So I just want to say, look, this is the first time I run into your meeting, but I will be back and I will hold you guys accountable because nobody on those big committees look like me. I'm Mexican. You know, so all I want to say is I appreciate you guys for giving me the time to talk, but you guys will hear about me more and my nonprofit and the things we're doing out here for Brown and Black. So
Thank
I thank
you.
you guys.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you in person at our next meeting. Any more callers?
I'm the only person with their hand raised is Thomas, who's already given comment. So I don't see anyone else who's raised their hand or unmuted themselves, Chair Mundo.
Okay, well, since the callers have allowed me a little time, I did have a couple questions, Ms. Epps. I didn't get to read this until last night at about 9. And my first read through, basically, I came to the conclusion, same thing, same effort, that really hasn't accomplished anything. And so if within 60 days, you don't have a real increase in new hires, do you plan to continue deploying for another 60 days and just keep pushing this and pushing this? And how many new employees are we going to need before we can go into a normal staffing pattern?
I don't have the number of employees we'll need to go into a normal staffing pattern. I can ask for an assessment in working with our contracted recruitment and human resources and get back to you. However, I will say we will continue to assess the need to deploy regularly. We will regularly assess the need to deploy how many people have to be in that complement, but we will at this time deploy until we reach compliance. We are doing everything that we can, shifting staff, looking at the field plans. We're working through those now to bolster some of the numbers that are in our field offices. We are aware that this may not be ideal, but this is in fact where we are. We are doing everything that we can to come into compliance with BSCC. I will say on our end, I believe in working with technical assistance through BSCC, DOJ, our contractors that we're bringing in. We are making significant dents. That much is being done. I'm sorry that that is not being conveyed in any written or verbal report, but I can tell you that people are working very hard to come into compliance.
And regarding that 60 days, I was at Los Padrinos last Sunday and I did run into somebody that was deployed. And even though I pushed hard on her, she was appreciative that the department provided her a letter, and in that letter, it gave her the understanding that it can be extended. And so she was appreciative of that, and I just want you to know that. You know, when I read the plan, I'm looking at the back end. It looks like, let's say you do hire all these DSOs and you do get into compliance. It looks like we're going to end up with the same programs and the same type of staffing that we had going into these problems. It doesn't seem that the plan really talks about how differently the staffing is going to look and the approach that's being taken in the hall, considering that the youth that are there now are staying so long that it's just more than supervision. There's got to really be a case plan element to it. So am I incorrect in viewing it like that?
First, let me clarify, are you talking about the internal corrective action plan that was provided to the POC at our last meeting?
No, I'm talking about this plan that I read last night. It really doesn't talk about long term. It doesn't talk about how we're going to land. I mean, are we going to land with the same staffing, the same processes, the same programs that we've been doing to get into this issue?
Well, that's two things. One, this only addressed what we're doing short term right now and long term for staffing. As I said, we're recruiting, I will say aggressively in a number of sectors. I respect our military personnel. I think every person has value. Everybody that I hear from on these calls, every time I'm in a meeting, I certainly listen to all feedback, constructive, destructive, positive, negative. I listen to it all and consider it all because it's all important. Everybody's perspective is. I will tell you again, we're recruiting. We are working through those recruitments. Internally, we have about 13 staff that will be incoming, may end up being a little less in our managerial ranks and supervisory ranks that will assist us in a variety of sectors, including training, including our detention bureau. And that, we expect to increase the numbers of line level staff coming in, not only through the recruitment contract, but in addition to that, through the just people that have expressed an interest in coming. We hope that works out, but you never know until the rubber meets the road. As far as programming, I will say, the short time I've been here, I own it as if I've been here the whole time because I do represent probation and there are significant barriers to overcome. But having been here starting December 18th to today being March 28th, I believe that we've made some significant strides. I see it every day in the work that we're doing and how we're looking at our proof of practice and what is happening in the oversight to bring us into compliance. I will forever say it's not ideal. And every day that we're already doing the good work that I see our staff doing at Los Padrinos and Barry J and all of our camps and our halls, I can say the union support has been significant. We agreed to disagree on some points and we're where we are on that, but still is interested. So I will say even in 90 days, even 60, we will not be in the same place because we expect that our progress will continue to be evident and we look forward to showing that to everyone.
I guess I didn't mean to bring up programming. What I meant is it appears that we're going to end up with the same model, the same the same staffing patterns, the heavy on DSOs, light on DPOs, SDPOs, and people who actually do casework and have experience in casework. And so I guess for me is the model going to look differently?
So what I can tell you is one thing I recognized right away coming into LA County is in our detention facilities, historically here, they have RTSB, which is secure treatment facilities operated by probation. They have their camps as well. So in detention, when kids are in LP, and of course now secure youth treatment, but let me talk about LP. In LP, there are not assigned probation caseload counselors to the kids, not the probation officers. This is someone on the unit that is responsible. So say if Mundo, Julian, and Epps, me, are on probation and I'm in the unit and I'm waiting to go to court. But if I say, hey, Miss Kakani is my caseload counselor, she's the person that meets with me once a week to see how I'm doing on the unit, not a counselor that's licensed, but someone on the unit that is assigned to me in what I call a care model. That doesn't exist right now at Los Padrinos. We are working on putting that in place. I believe that when somebody is responsible for a child, for lack of a better word, I am assigned to you. I speak to you weekly about your progress, about what we can do better, about your concerns. You have a care model that takes a kid in differently. So we are moving very much towards incorporating that model at our Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. In addition to reformatting what we call our crisis intervention teams. And our hope is to layer those with people, young adults or people that care, well, not young adults, but adults that are in more of a care model when they respond. Those don't have to necessarily be our DSOs. It can include what we'd like to do is put our deputy probation officer, social worker, and round those out with 2 other individuals. Also instilling reintegration teams, even in juvenile hall. because even when you have a shorter term stay, the way that we assist you in reintegrating and returning home can be very helpful. I've seen these things have a great deal of success when they were incorporated in the county that I hail from, where we do had done a more holistic model in juvenile that I set up there. So I hope to adopt, not to make it that county, but there are a lot of strengths here in Los Angeles County that if probation and the staff that are so willing to do it and work very hard every day are able to assist and support, bringing in those models can help us to continue to see a pattern of success. So I look forward to working with our staff and working with our overall department to bring those things into the department once we come into compliance, get over this hill and start to do those things.
That is a great way to end today's town hall. That's the very positive answer, and hopefully we can support your effort and bringing that model in. Our time has come to an end. Thank you all for joining us. We have 2 evening town halls coming up that start at 6:30 on Tuesday, April 2nd and Wednesday, April 17th on the school to prison pipeline. Our next regular commission meeting is on Thursday, April 11th at St. Anne's Events and Conference Center at 9 a.m. You can find registration details on the PLC website at plc.la. Oh, Wendy, can you finish that off for me? I can't read it under here.
Yes, it's poc.lacounty.gov.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great day. And Ms. Epps, thank you for taking the time this morning to join us.
Thank you for the invite. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. And commissioners, thank you for your time.
Bye, thanks.
Okay, we're